e-commerce, the next billion-dollar story in Indian e-commerce. And we've assembled a panel of experts, shopping e-commerce experts today, and I'd like to call those gentlemen on the stage right now. Come on up, gentlemen. Yeah, come close to me. All right. If we could, just to get things started off, we'll ask all the panelists just to introduce yourselves so that the audience knows who you are, and that way they can actually know how you fit into this discussion. We'll start all the way down at the end, if we could.
Hi, am I audible? Yes, excellent. My name is Viresh Oberoi. There's slight misspelling over there, but I'm sure you can't see that. I'm the CEO and MD of a company called mjunction. We have been in the internet space now for the last 13 years. We were incorporated in 2001. The name of the company earlier was Metal Junction, and we were supposed to actually do certain things in the metal business. But we have sort of done certain things in the metal business. Today we are the world's largest electronic steel marketplace. But then we decided to get into other verticals as well. And we launched cold junction and buy junction and auto junction. But I'm sure more of that will come out in our discussions today. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jitender Miglani. I'm from forecast analyst at Forrester Research. And there I cover social media and online retail markets across the globe. I am very interested in online retail forecast for India, and I have developed that, and I have written a report on that. So a lot of interesting research we keep doing on this market, and I would have a lot of interesting things to share in this session. Thanks.
Okay.
Hey guys, audible? Yeah. Hi, my name is Bharath Devanathan. I'm the CEO for Groupon APAC Emerging Markets. We have a bucket in Asia that we call emerging markets, which is India, Indonesia, Philippines, and Thailand, because there's same characteristics in terms of internet penetration, the e-commerce ecosystem, and so on. So we look at these as a cluster. I've been with Groupon for 3.5 years in India. Started with Groupon when it started in India. Prior to this, I was a consultant with Booz & Company in Dubai, and before that, a hardcore techie with Yahoo in the US. Looking forward to having a chat with the gentlemen here and with all of you guys.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much. Let's basically get a snapshot of e-commerce in India right now. What does it look like? How big is it? And where is it headed? Who wants to take a stab at that? Yep.
So I think I can take a stab at that. Sure. Because so I worked on this Asia Pacific online retail forecast, and this forecast covers India, China, Korea, Japan, and Australia markets. And when I was doing this forecast, so what I observed was that, so we have online buyers, okay, who buy online. And we have a parameter called online buyer penetration, which is how many buyers as a percentage of online population are there in a country. So in India, around 14% of the online population are online buyers, okay? In China, this number is around 50%. In Australia, it is around 57%. So what I observed was that, when I looked at the online buyer penetration of the countries right now and how it has evolved over a period of time, I observed that the countries which are there, we can classify broadly into three categories in three stages. The first is the nascent stage, second is the ascending stage, and third is the mature stage. So India, what I believe is that is now in the nascent stage of the e-commerce, because the online buyer penetration is just 14% of the total online population. And online penetration itself is just 16% of the total population. So there are a very small number of buyers. In 2014, we expect only 36 million buyers, online buyers in India. So, but the good thing is that we have a lot of room for growth. There's a lot of big headroom for growth available for us. And India e-commerce market is just going to pick up from here now. We are behind China, let's say 8 to 10 years. This is primarily because China economic liberalization started around in 1979, and ours started in 1991. So we are 12 years of lag there. And because of that, in most of the macroeconomic indicators and even online retail, we see that we are 8 to 10 years behind China. So India online retail market is going to pick up, and that we are going to see. From nascent stage, India is going to go into the ascending stage in the next 5 years. Thanks.
Okay. Viresh, you want to say something?
Yeah. What I've done is actually put down some of my thoughts last evening when I came into Bangalore. I'm based in Calcutta. really in terms of where is the next billion-dollar company coming from. So as I put this down, I thought I'll get this off my chest. And so my belief is very much in terms of the next billion value-creating opportunity will come from actually solving socio-economic issues. And in India, of course, there is no dearth of such issues that we are currently facing. Even in the Western world, there are no shortage of issues. And while Google and Facebook have, who are better known, have solved some of the social issues that were actually prevailing in the Western world, there have been a number of lesser-known companies. So Uber, Airbnb come to mind very, very quickly, which is in terms of actually solving a socio-economic problem which the West was actually facing. And so we really look at, or the West is currently looking at various other issues which they're facing and seeing how technology can actually solve those issues. So for example, the cost of energy. How is it that technology can help in actually reducing the cost of energy? And one of the visible ways of doing this is what we're talking about is actually a driverless car. And the driverless car is going to make a huge impact in terms of reducing the cost of energy, actually reducing the usage of energy. And the impact of this is not only going to be felt economically, which is as far as the oil industry is concerned, but even going back as far back as the steel industry, which is a major supplier to the automobile industry. And of course, the social ramification of this is going to be tremendous in terms of the employment that this particular industry currently offers, or this kind of service that is offered. Moving towards India, of course, India has got other issues and which are not the same as the West. But then looking at issues such like maybe in terms of price that we are having, in terms of convenience. So these are the various ways that commerce is able to actually address issues. So if we were to look at, for example, in the state of Punjab, there are about 50,000 wheat traders. Now, why do we have so many wheat traders? Why are there so many, so to say, middlemen between the farmer and the consumer? What is the role that they are playing? And what is it that technology can actually do, or e-commerce can actually do, to eliminate or disintermediate these middlemen who actually may be not creating any value? So the socio-economic impact of such a change is huge. Now, this is something which is possible in India, where we have talked about agricultural produce. We can talk about not only pulses and wheat and grain, but we can also talk about tea and coffee and pepper and spices. So my company has recently entered, for example, into tea, and we will shortly be launching mjunction, for example, which is how do we actually bring about efficiency and transparency to the 1 billion kilo tea industry which is there in India. How do we actually reach out faster to the consumers and see that their requirements are met far more conveniently than they are today? So really solving such issues would be, I would imagine, the way that e-commerce is going to grow in India, which is going to be distinct and different to the way that they've actually grown in other countries. Because our problems, our issues are really our issues, and the solutions to these issues will be coming out of India itself.
Viresh, are you making money?
Sorry?
Are you making money?
Yes, which is interesting because of the fact we started making money from the first day. And we're
talking about profits. I'm not talking about sales. I mean, we're talking about
we're talking about actual profit.
Okay.
We're talking about the fact that the annualized dividend that we've been paying to our promoters has been in excess of 120%. Last year, we paid a dividend of over 1,000%. So we're talking about not market cap. We're not talking about a private equity, et cetera, et cetera. We're talking about actual money being made, and money being made only because of the fact that we're actually creating value. And from that value, we have the buyer or the seller who's actually paying us, which more than compensates us for the investment that we made, and which is a return of capital that we're giving to our shareholders.
Okay. Let me pull in Groupon here, since we're talking about the market and the possibility of making money.
Well, we make money. So to comment on the e-commerce scenario, right? So one of the things that some of the conversations I have with sort of graduates who are just out of school saying, what is the e-commerce? What is the definition of e-commerce? And say, how is it going to grow, so on and so forth. And to explain this, or an analogy is, everyone's excited about Uber today, right? Uber is it's connecting, it's an aggregated supply of taxis, and it's connecting demand, which is all of us who want taxis in real time to this. It's a great model, and it's worked really well because it's come on the mobile. But what e-commerce essentially is the same thing. It's an aggregated supply of a lot of different verticals. So if you look at, did Uber exist earlier? I think it did. Amazon is the Uber of merchants who wanted to sell something online. All kinds of things, mobile phones, T-shirts, apparel, so on. Book My Show is the Uber for movie tickets, right? ClearTrip is the Uber for travel. So there's millions of these marketplaces that are being created either in niche verticals or aggregated things like Amazon, Flipkart, and so on. And will e-commerce grow? And the answer is, I think a resounding yes. The reason is that, like Jitender was pointing out, one, the online population today is low in India. Second, how much is our spend as a percentage? How much is our online spend as a percentage of total spend? So in the 90s, when Amazon started in the US, in 1994, 1995, 0.1% of the spend in the US, e-commerce spend in the US, was online. And by the time Amazon became profitable, it was about 1%, and today it's about 10. And so even in a developed market like the US, only 10% of e-commerce, when I say e-commerce, it means you're buying phones or products. All these transactions happen online. In India, that number today is less than 1%, right? And even though we have Flipkarts and Snapdeals and so on, and they're making huge sales, and you all know Big Billion Day and so on and so forth, the room to grow is high because we're still at 1% of our online spend, of our retail spend is online. Secondly, so this is all products, right? Then there is spend that you do, which is not really products. You spend on restaurants, you spend on spas, you spend on travel, and so on. That number for India is even more lower. That number is about 0.1%, and that's where Groupon operates in hoping to bring all these purchases also online, or at least discover these purchases online.
Let me just pick up on Groupon. Are you offering things, just kind of educate those of us who don't live in India? Are you offering, for example, to your customers, rock bottom bargains at a certain store for the next 2 hours? If they can get there, they get that. Mm-hmm. And is that working?
So we do that, but I think the larger problem that we solve is. So we realized early on that we are a merchant-first business. So we will go to a restaurant and say, what is the problem that we can solve for you? If you're a new restaurant, you need awareness. If you are a restaurant that's already been you've been around for a while, but let's say you're located in a central business district, so you have high traffic during lunch, but not during dinner. So we want to solve that problem for you. So we design a package that works that way.
And I'm asking this because I've seen the problems that have developed in the US and that have developed in Europe with this. You may offer, okay, at 6 p.m., there's a great deal at this Chinese restaurant. You can get, your dinner for, let's say, €3. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, at 5:45, you have 500 people standing outside your door.
Right.
You can't feed 500 people for dinner. Right. So it's been a disaster, mm-hmm. especially in Europe for Groupon. Mm-hmm. So how are you guys going to make sure you don't end up with a lot of curry on your face?
So the good thing is...
I hope you don't mind the pun, but I could resist. I mean, they wouldn't laugh at me in Germany if I used that pun. Yeah. So,
well, the good thing is we can learn from the mistakes of others.
Yes.
Right? So I think Groupon grew like a rage in the beginning, and a lot of us learned. And India Groupon started in 2008 in the US, 2009 in Europe. We started in 2011. So we had the benefit of seeing, what happened in that growth. And so what you mentioned is capacity planning. So we go to a restaurant, we say, okay, how many people can you take at a time? Let's take a certain percentage of that for Groupon. And then now we started making reservations, compulsory. So now we've really understood the need for these regulations and understanding the merchant's business before we take things online. Mm-hmm. So it's a very easy way to solve it. Wasn't done earlier because we were growing like a rage, but it's not a problem now.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I think the point that Bharath is making, which is we are really problem solvers, and I think that is very important. Yeah. We use technology, we use innovation to actually solve problems, and by solving these problems, we actually create value. But to solve the problem and make sure that you don't get curry on your face, it's very important that you actually speak to both the buyer as well as the seller. So let me give you an example. Yesterday I met with Tata Coffee here in Bangalore, and we are discussing with them in terms of, they actually also produce tea. They say they produce about 6 million kilos of tea every year. And of course they are very strong in coffee, is to understand what is the problem they are facing as sellers, but equally importantly is to meet their buyers of coffee and tea and find out what problems they are facing. And those buyers of coffee and tea who are actually not their buyers but buying from others, why are they not buying from them? To understand their problems so that you make sure that you address the issues that are being faced by both the buyer as well as the seller, and that way you make sure that you don't get 6,000 people coming in who don't have a booking and then need to go back. Which is point number one. Point number two is we have found a number of issues which are not really related to the buyer and seller directly. There are other constituents in the supply chain. So for example, when we were trying to sell steel for the main producers like Tata Steel and SAIL, we found that there were a number of buyers who were not buying directly from them. And they were not buying directly because the steel producers wanted cash upfront, and these guys did not have the cash and they wanted credit. So because of the fact they didn't have money to give upfront, they were not able to buy directly. We've understood this problem. We worked with banks and we understood the bank's problems in actually extending credit, and we were able to solve that problem in a win-win-win scenario. And with that win-win-win scenario, we now have small buyers of steel who are buying directly from Tata Steel and from SAIL and from the other large producers, actually solving this problem too. So really it is in terms of problems, and this problem may be unique to India that we solve, may not be in Myanmar, may not be somewhere else, but they will have other problems. So really is to get in there and find out what are the issues they're facing, using technology and using innovation to actually solve it.
Let me ask you a little bit about, we've talked a lot the past couple of days about small and medium-sized businesses in India being basically the backbone of this economy. How can they leverage the marketplace model for online retail? I mean, are we seeing success in that, and what are the biggest challenges for that? Jitender, do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, so for SMEs, I think marketplace is a very, very useful model because what happens is that it gives them more market. Okay, the more number of users can see their product, and they get more reach out there. So that is the key benefit which and they don't have to spend. Let's say on building the technology infrastructure, on building the sophisticated platforms to analyze the consumer data and to, let's say, to build up the website, to show the products to the consumers. They don't have to spend on the marketing to attract the consumers to your marketplace. It's the marketplace which is there, let's say eBay or Snapdeal, they do everything for you, and you just put on your products, and those buyers are going to come on there, and but you have to pay somewhere. That cost you pay as, let's say, listing fee or a transaction fee, but that is fine because as a first step, you want to be able to see how much success you are getting in terms of selling your products online, and this is the first step. And I think SMEs in India are very much leveraging this marketplace model, not only to sell within India but outside India as well. So there are a lot of merchants over eBay who not only sell within India, but the cross-border sales are also becoming very, very high. There is a lot of demand, let's say, for the products from Rajasthan outside. So those merchants are able to sell their products to those countries.
You know, if I can build on that, really, this is a great leveler and for MSME. And it brings huge advantages, far greater advantages to the MSE sector as compared to the large sector. So as a matter of fact, we found the MSMEs really lapping this up because they see the value very quickly. And we see the larger companies going much slower than possibly we thought that they would. So it's the MSME which has come forward very quickly, understanding what the value is and working with such technologies to see how they can actually reach out to a larger base of buyers. But here the only catch is in terms of you need to have a strong brand. You need to have good service. If you don't have that, then once again, you will suffer tremendously, and you will suffer, it doesn't matter whether you're an MSME or you're a large seller.
Yeah. So I think just to add, I mean, completely on board with what they have said. Just to add to that, I think SMEs, apart from SMEs, there's also like small mom and pop. Like there are stories of people housewives who've started a business on Snapdeal or Flipkart, just selling some small items, and that it's taken off, and now that's a livelihood that they can support, and so on. So that's really, and the marketplace really enables that for almost zero cost. I mean, there's almost zero opportunity cost there. And the other thing is also, even in the enterprise space, there are startups, marketplaces coming up saying, like in NASCOM, I met somebody who's a founder of a startup that set up a marketplace for enterprises if they want to buy software. So I'm a small and medium guy, I want an accounting software, and I go to this place and I can look at all the accounting softwares that are applicable to me, and you can bid on how much you want to pay for something.
Mm-hmm.
So the marketplaces enable both on the consumer side as well as enterprise.
Is there a lot of fear right now, especially among these mom and pop stores? I think you call them what? Kirana here in India. Are they afraid of e-commerce? That e-commerce? I mean, I've been trying to make comparisons between India and what we've seen in Europe and what we've seen in the United States. And could e-commerce almost be like the Walmart of India? You've seen in the United States, Walmart has moved into an area and has wiped out smaller stores. These mom and pop stores now are basically non-existent in most of the United States. And I'm wondering, could that happen here? I know you have restrictions on FDI here still that you have to deal with, but could e-commerce basically be, the atomic bomb for the whole Kirana sector in India?
So not in the next 5 to 10 years, because let me give you with the numbers, okay? So overall retail opportunity, overall retail sectors in India is about $520 billion, okay? Of that, only 8% of it is organized retail, okay? So 8% of $520 billion, you can say, is around $30 to $40 billion, okay? And of that, the online retail, which is like the goods and services, selling the goods primarily through online, is just $3 billion, $3 to $4 billion. So online retail is very, very small in India right now. And as per our projections, by 2019, it is going to grow to $32 billion. But at the same time, the overall retail and organized retail markets are also growing. And they are also growing at a faster rate. There is in tier 2 and tier 3 towns, there is a lot of underserved consumer base, okay, which want to be served through branded products, okay. So for them, e-commerce is the key channel, otherwise they can't get access to the branded products, because the organized retail does not have a presence there. And if you look at the overall India demographics, where does the population resides? So we have 68% of the population living in rural areas, 32% of the population living in urban areas. Within that 32% also, 8% is only living in tier 1 cities, which is like Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Calcutta, Hyderabad. And rest of the population is living in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities, where also the organized retail presence is very, very less. So over the next 5 to 10 years, the Kirana stores may not be that hurt, but as it starts picking up more and more momentum, and as the supply is going to become more and more, because the demand is growing at a slower rate, the supply is becoming more and more, because there is more ambitious supply side. So at that time, it is definitely going to hurt, but not in the next 5 to 10 years.
Are people talking about the threat? Because this is a sea change in India's economy if this happens. I mean, this isn't basically, talking about a new type of store. I mean, you're talking about a complete change in the habits of how people shop. I mean, are people already having that discussion of a tsunami-like change in the economy here?
So I think the Kirana stores, we would all be lying if we said that the Kirana stores didn't feel the effect of e-commerce. Mm-hmm. And I'll go back to my example of being a glorified aggregator of supply, right? So what you mentioned is Walmart was a glorified, like if you go back, 100 years ago, there was no supermarket. There was just small stores near your house. You would go to a certain store for buying salt. You would go to a different store to buy, a plumbing appliance, right? But now Walmart has brought all of that under one roof. And that sort of wiped out, and because it's able to do that at scale, it's sort of wiping out these individual players. The same thing is happening in India. Like the big bazaars are sort of giving all the Kirana stores, a run for their money, even before e-commerce sort of emerged here. So I think anybody who's a glorified and strong aggregator of supply is going to give competition to Kirana stores. At the same time, these guys, and like Viresh said, we are sort of problem solvers, and in India, the word we use is jugaad, which means come what may, we will get shit done.
Jugaad.
Jugaad, yeah. And so the Kirana stores are, so in Bangalore, there's this grocery sort of e-commerce player called Big Basket, which I'm sure some of you have heard of. So you order groceries online or vegetables, and they deliver it to you within 4 hours. But there are some smart Kirana stores have said, okay, now I will do the same thing for you. If you're my customer, even if you want to order 100 grams of salt, I will deliver it to you for free, because he realizes the threat that's happening, and he has to sort of move with the times.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that the feeling, the threat of competition now must be immense,
Yeah.
if you're looking at what's happening right now. Any questions from the audience? It's 11:30 now, so I don't want us to, we've got one question here. Okay, let's get a microphone to him, and we've got a question here from this gentleman right here too. So let's collect those questions. Okay.
The question is like the example that was given, like Tata Steel. Now people can buy directly from Tata Steel. So for the marketplace seems good for SMEs, but like big giant corporations, like Samsung and mobile, all Micromax and all big companies in a high ticket item, can't they set up their own online, and how that would affect, the big players like Flipkart and Snapdeal, who are counting all those big dollar items in their revenue? And that changes the whole dimension of market cap. I mean, that is my question.
Okay. So if I understood your question correctly, is that why doesn't Tata Steel do this themselves, and why do they have to go through third parties? Is that the question? Or?
My question is, now successfully Tata Steel, people can buy directly from Tata Steel, the example you gave, right? Like consumers initially wouldn't be buying from them directly, they would buy through various traders. Similarly, can't these big companies, like in mobile, for example, can't people directly, if they set up their own online store, seeing competition from Flipkarts and big, because they're also getting it from Chinese and all other vendors, so can't that affect that revenues of all these big companies? That is my question. If they set up their own e-commerce online shopping, because they do manufacture here in India.
So let me answer your question. So this is very interesting question, because this is the trend which we are seeing increasingly observing in the marketplace, where the manufacturers are themselves setting up their own stores. Like Samsung wants to set up their own stores to sell their mobile phones, or Micromax their own website for their mobile phones. But it is going to, let's say, affect the e-commerce vendor revenues, like the marketplace or the web online retailer revenues, but ultimately the manufacturer revenues are only growing because they have added one other channel in their sales process. So, and the overall e-commerce sector is also growing. So it is not that the e-commerce sector is going to go down because of this. Online retail is just increasing, and the users have one more channel at their disposal to make their purchases.
Yeah, so if I can add to this, there will be what we call as omni-channel, and you got to make sure that if you are a producer, you have all the channels available to you, so that the buyer or the consumer can come to you from whichever channel that he prefers to come from. He may want to walk into your store, he may want to give you a call, he may want to approach you online, he may want to approach somebody else online. But if he does not, and he will have the choice in terms of which one is he comfortable with. And you, as a producer, need to make sure that there is availability in all these different channels available to him, otherwise you will lose out on the sale.
Right. Just to add to that, right? So if I understand your question, you're like, why isn't Samsung, setting up its own online store, right? What are the impediments? So if I look at it and I'll give you a very tactical answer. So, website banane mein 10,000 kisi ko do, they'll make a website, right? So once I make the website, how do I generate that demand? Now, the way it works in an e-commerce thing is there is something which is called CAC, customer acquisition cost. So how much money am I willing to spend to get a customer to buy something online, right? And this generally, it ranges. It's about $5, $10. It depends on the industry and the niche. But it generally, I will spend on a customer if I know that he's going to spend for a long time on my site. Right? So if Flipkart will spend on me because I bought a phone, tomorrow I'll buy a book, later I'll buy a tablet, I'll buy something like that. For Samsung, once I buy a phone, like for 2 years, I'm not going to come back to that site. Right? And for them to sort of generate that much demand for people to come to this site is already hard because the Flipkarts and the Snapdeals are already sort of have raised the price of advertising. So all e-commerce companies, they make some money by selling sales. Half of that, or a lot of that, will go to Facebook and Google for advertising, and then it comes to the bottom line. So if I'm Samsung, it really doesn't make sense for me to sort of participate in that race. The other side of the equation is a lot of mobile phones, for example, are still being dominantly bought offline, right? And I don't think that's going to change. I think online will be still a medium for discovery for a long time, like you said, 5, 10 years, maybe even longer. But it will never become the dominant space on it. So Samsung is investing in those channels to sort of penetrate the market rather than online, because online they're already partnered with the guys who are already doing it very well.
Okay, we had a question here from this gentleman, and then here, and here. Where's the microphone? Let's get the microphone to this gentleman.
Oh, he has the power of the microphone.
Yeah, sorry. That's why he had his hand up first, though. I'm trying to be fair. You've got the mic, the power of the mic.
It is seen that e-commerce is very suitable for standard products like books, mobile or laptop, but it's not that much successful for the products which need touch and feel like garments or those kind of areas. How you see technology can be a influencer or catalyst to enable e-commerce to sell those kind of products which needs a touch and feel by the customer, and if you can share some experience where you have seen technology has helped to sell these products.
Okay, so I'll take a stab at that. I'm one of those guys, like you mentioned, I find it very tough to buy apparel online because I don't know it's going to fit me, and size and shoes and all that. But technology
You have to send it back. Right, you always have, but they always have free shipping, right?
Yeah. So they've made that stuff easier, but it's a much better feeling when you get it right first, right? So some companies are developing technology and where you sort of put up your photo, like you're staring at a webcam, and then they will put that shirt on you and you can see it immediately, whether it's working, it's the right fit for you or not. There are other people who will say, you want to try this shirt, these are the closest stores, like let's say you're looking at Nike, they say these are the closest stores near you where you can try it out and still come back and buy here because the online price is lower. So these are some of the ways that sort of technology is sort of helping, apart from, these are the ways it's directly helping the consumer, but at the background, helping reverse logistics, helping developing that whole network for you to come, see the product, you don't like it, return it and get a different size and so on. I'm sure many of us have done that. That's also sort of being done. But I think if you were to ask me, the revolutionary technologies are one where it's called virtual mirroring. So you looking at something and then that particular, either a necklace or a garment with a different trim or whatever is on you, and then you can see how it looks on you.
I'm reminded, I'll give you two examples. One, of course, is industrial products, which is steel. And we sell a lot of defective steel and scrap steel and things, where each lot differs from the other. And so what we actually did is that we had an imaginary buyer sitting in a place called Mandi Govindgarh, which is in Punjab, which is many thousands of miles away. And we had the producer, which is sitting in Odisha, which is Rourkela steel plant. And we said, what is it that we can do for this guy sitting in Mandi Govindgarh that he doesn't get up from the front of his laptop or PC screen? So one of the things was that, is there some way that we can describe to him this material which is available? So that he doesn't have to get up, he doesn't have to actually make the journey, which he used to do, to actually fly down to Odisha, see the lot for himself. So it was very simple. What we did is we got hold of various people to go and inspect the lot, and whatever were the important parameters which would determine what price he would offer, we would put those down. And we would send that to him before he would actually participate in the auction. So this was one of the ways, and there were various other issues that he faced, which one I mentioned was finance, the second was transportation, and how does he actually make sure that this material is transported once he actually wins that lot. So we, again coming back to the fact that we are problem solvers, the problem was how do we make sure this guy in Mandi Govindgarh is suddenly enabled, empowered to actually buy materials from a steel plant which is many hundreds of kilometers away, without him actually having to employ a middleman or a commission agent to do this, and who will take some money out of it. So this was the way that we actually solved this. Though we have as yet not really used the past technology to do this, but we are now looking at analytics more than anything else, which is to say that if this particular lot which had gone for this price had this composition, then what could be the estimate that we can give for this, which we can which we can share among our buyers, so that they get an idea in terms of what is the kind of price that this will demand. So we are looking at analytics at this point in time to solve this issue. So there's a great deal that one can do, even in, so to say, non-conforming products, or products which change from time to time and hence need a little bit more information or analytics.
Let's get the microphone to this gentleman here.
Good afternoon. As Mr. Jitender said that India is in an infant stage of e-commerce, and my question is like which model of e-commerce is going to be viable, whether it's better to be part of a marketplace or set up your own e-commerce shop, and why?
So let me answer the question. Let me connect the previous question also and answer this question. So if you see any country moves through 4 stages of e-commerce. The first is that users in a country go online, okay, and they browse the internet and they do email and all that. Then second thing is that they start purchasing, let's say, the online tickets, okay, those things for which there is no e-commerce setup is needed. Then third stage is that when you start purchasing books, music, electronic items, on which you can compare, those are standard, you can compare only features offline and then you can purchase them online. And the fourth is subjective purchases, okay, which is like the apparel, the footwear, the jewelry, all those things for which you have to make the subjective purchases. So every country moves through 4 stages. And the key determinant in moving through 4 stages is the online tenure of the buyers in a country. So if the online tenure, let's say, if I have been online, let's say for the last 10 years, okay, I will be more comfortable purchasing the items online as compared to somebody else, let's say, who has been online for the last 1 or 2 years. So as the online tenure will increase, the trust in the online shopping will also increase. So for India, what is happening is that online population, the population is getting online slowly and slowly. The online penetration is increasing slowly and slowly. As more and more population goes online, they will want to have purchase different kind of products. So this is how the demand side is evolving. Now supply side, how do they evolve? So the categories, let's say, which are the standard, let's say the books, music, all those are going to be purchased through, let's say, the dominant website, the Flipkart and Amazon. They dominate that, and people are going to purchase those things from that. But let's say if there is a very, very niche product, let's say handicraft I want to purchase, okay, I would like to go to I would discover some website or some seller who has some unique handicraft which they are selling it to me. So those manufacturers will set up their own shop. So in India, both the models, both inventory-led model as well as marketplace model are going to succeed, because there are different kind of segments of buyers. They are at different stages in terms of their online tenure, and they have different category needs. And in the online, in the supply side also, there are different kind of segments which are out there who are solving the problems of different kind of online buyers. So all the models right now, it is, as I told you, it's an nascent stage. Everything is going to succeed right now. It is not that one model is going to fail versus another. Inventory-led model is also going to succeed. Marketplace model is also going to succeed, because the demand is huge and demand far outpaces the supply.
Let me just, before we go on with the questions, let's just ask by a show of hands, how many people here have bought big ticket items online? What big ticket items? I mean, anything from, let's say, a television on up. So not, I mean, what, maybe 25%? What about things like clothing, shoes, phones? Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of potential here to talk about. Who had their question, or their hand up? This gentleman here in the front. All right, let's have, we'll let him go. No, we'll let him go, and then the microphone comes to this gentleman, and then the gentleman back there who wants the power of the mic.
Hi, my question is that in e-commerce, we are all new enthusiasts who wants to get into e-commerce, and when we are considering the threats, I believe the fakeness in this industry is a big threat. Like, let's say, I'm an example of that. Like when Pepperfry came into the picture, I ordered a big furniture, and because everybody is in the race, they have come up with cash on delivery. Let's say I've ordered like 40,000 rupees furniture, it comes to my home and just, I don't need it. I mean, they can't say no to me, and they have all logistic price is huge on that. And I really don't understand how does these companies actually, have this logistics expense which has been put on, and let's say the fakeness in the industry is huge. I mean, that's the difference between the physical market and the online market, including jobs also. Let's say they come up with all sign-ups, you give your fake email IDs and fake information for all the job e-commerce, and respectively when the cash on delivery came into the picture, there's a lot of fakeness in this industry. So how do we reduce that, or how do we eradicate that?
Yeah, how do you fight fraud? I mean, e-commerce is a playground for con artists.
So, a very high-level answer to your question is fraud will exist forever in e-commerce. I think that is the cost of doing an e-commerce business. You sort of have to account for that when you're running the business. Sorry?
What percentage?
It can vary. It really depends, but it's in the low, like single digits. Nothing more, I would think. But to answer your question on cash on delivery, and this is my sort of take on that. I think it was a necessary evil 3 years ago to have cash on delivery as a payment mechanism, because it was a way to grow the e-commerce sector in India, and the guys who started it did it because they probably saw challenges in payment. They wanted to sort of grow the sector, right? Now that has benefited everyone else who joined the sector later. And today, I think people who have it, today I think it's an unnecessary evil. It's just not required. I would, like in Groupon, for the past 2 months, we don't have cash on delivery now. We used to have it. We don't have it, and we haven't seen any appreciable dip in business because of that. Because if somebody wants to buy from you, the reason you have cash on delivery is because they don't trust you, or they don't trust the medium of e-commerce. The medium of e-commerce, I think, 3 years ago was very different, but today, if you ask most people in this room, almost 100% would say, I trust e-commerce. This is not a scam. Now, would you trust the brand? That really depends on the brand. If you've had a bad experience with the brand, maybe you'll choose cash on delivery again. But if not, then you will choose a payment. So for us, and I see actually cash on delivery just dying. Because one, it is expensive. For one is, you're saying there's fraud. Like I send it to you and then you say no. And the second thing is the courier guys charge a heck of a lot for cash on delivery, even though it doesn't cost them. So if I send, let's say, this chocolate to you, even if it's prepaid, I would pay the guy maybe $1 to deliver it to you. But just to collect cash from you, I would pay him $1 more. And let's say you reject it, I would pay him $1 more to send it back.
Well, is that an incentive then to make the 60% of Indians who are not banked right now, is that the incentive that we need to actually make them get to a bank and open an account?
Yeah, that's why we love Narendra Modi.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. But let me add something too about the fraud. I do almost everything online now. And my credit card, I probably get a replacement credit card at least 4 times a year now because of credit card fraud online. And the most common trick, and this is something that can help everyone, I didn't know about this until a couple of years ago, is your credit card company sees that someone in another country tries to do a charge of, let's say, 50 cents, just a tiny one. And if it goes through, immediately after that, they'll say, okay, I'm buying 5 televisions for $5,000, right? So the credit card companies have gotten very wise to that. Nevertheless, I still have to deal with a new credit card about once a quarter. And that, that's the headache, but that's the reality. That's the shadow side of what's going on right now. Okay, this gentleman had a question. Okay, let's see. We've got time. We're going to take 3 questions, and then we're going to have to wrap it up. This gentleman here, the man who's been very patient, and how about someone in the very back right there? All right?
My question to the panelists, recently the huge discounts which has come in the name of predatory pricing. Panel to anybody can address this, that how would you address this to the brick and mortar people to convince them on this issue? vis-a-vis the regulatory part of having the taxation structure, because the online marketplaces are considered as a commission agents. By and large, it's nothing but they provide a marketplace where they create a platform and give to meet buyer and seller. So that is regulatory part. But so long as the brick and mortar, there was a huge bustle happening between these two online things that you can't give such huge pricing, which is named as predatory pricing. So what's your convincing answer? I'm from media, from Rural Journalist Association of India, representing 19,000 journalists across India. Yeah.
So, I have to answer it carefully. So I think you're referring to this Big Billion Day and everything that happened there, and a lot of the guys. See, my view is that whatever makes sense, makes sense for the customer will eventually win. If it is at the cost of disrupting an existing business, then that will happen. What you're saying is, so typically what happens is a manufacturer will tell a retailer, a brick and mortar guy, that they have something called an MOP, minimum operating price. You cannot sell below that price. Like that transaction has to happen minimum of that price. The online guys still sell at that price, but they say you buy at this price and in 2 seconds I'll give you a cashback of 10%. Right? So that's how they sort of regulatorily overcome this. Is this good for brick and mortar? I think the answer is, you've seen that in the press already. They're complaining. They said we're not going to stock Samsung, we're not going to stock Apple. This happened especially when everyone was selling 5S at 30,000 and so on. And I think that will just evolve. I think there's several examples of online sort of distribution mediums disrupting. Netflix is a good example. It just disrupted Blockbuster completely. So if it's good for the customer, then it will happen. And I can't take one side versus the other, but I think the customer will.
The e-commerce story is evolving, and it actually solves or makes more efficient the resources that you have. So the scarce resource that we currently have as consumers is money. So we look to lower pricing. Where will we get a lower pricing from? So we go shopping around. But I think this will change, and it's changing very quickly. As a matter of fact, certain stratas of a society have another resource which is even more scarce, which is time. And they are interested that in the shortest period of time, how do I get what I'm looking for? Price comes number 2 or number 3. So I'm looking at time, I'm looking at convenience. So there are going to be an evolution, and this evolution has started already, which is that there is a very strong segment of people who are saying that I'm looking for time, I'm looking for quality. And if I'm able to get these, price is a poor third. And hence, this will not be an issue. So e-commerce addresses whatever is the scarce resource, whatever is the problem, actually solves a problem. And hence you will have niches operating, because the entire country does not move up at one point in time. Mention was made that India is nascent, is in the nascent stage. And of course there are countries in the mature stage. But this is also not true for example, we were quite surprised. We became the world's largest electronic steel marketplace. We thought we had become the largest because we had the most inefficient and corrupt practices in India, and hence e-commerce was able to solve that, and this is not required in the developed world. But surprise, surprise, 2 weeks ago we sent a team to a developed country, and we found that their supply chain, their steel distribution way that they actually distribute steel, which is physically and not electronically, really sucks. It's highly inefficient. So the point that is being made, where will the next billion-dollar company come from? The next billion-dollar company need not come from addressing the Indian market. It may be an Indian company which is solving an overseas problem, and we find that there are lots of problems that they're facing which they're not even aware of. So the steel industry globally thinks they're doing a damn good job, but we believe that they're not, and there's a lot of pain that they're going through which we can help with.
Sounds like you know something that we will know soon about some deal that's going to take place. No comment. Okay, one more question. The gentleman right here.
Thanks. I'm glad I got the mic again. So my question is more related to Jitin's comment about your answer to mom and pop stores, right? And he made a comment that I think 5 to 10 years from now, they're probably going to be gone, right? And I'm finding it very hard to believe that. Being 92% of the market, I don't think they're going to go away. I think they're going to evolve and come up with different ways of staying in the market. And one big problem which I think a lot of people are not talking about is the massive supply chain problem in India. If you look at Hindustan Lever, for example, massive supply chain, massive distribution, distributors, stockists, restockists, redistributors, and so on and so forth, right? So I think when you look at just supply chain only from these unorganized retail people, I'm not talking about these 8-person, big bazaar kind of guys who probably do a really good job in keeping their warehouses intact. I'm talking about these mom and pop stores who don't have the kind of volume which the other guys do, right? And I want to get your perspective on what's going on there. The back-end supply chain problem as for the mom and pop kirana stores are concerned.
Okay, who wants to do that?
I didn't get your question exactly. So firstly, I said that the threat right now is not there to mom and pop stores right now from e-commerce. It is going to be visible in the next 5 to 10 years. I'm not saying that they are going to get wiped away. So sorry for the clarification there, one clarification there. I said through the market sizes that the market sizes which you see. So total market is $518 billion, 8% is organized retail. Out of that, only 1% or 2% is e-commerce. There's a room for growth for everything, and everything is going to grow. But what happens is that the kind of efficiencies, cost efficiencies, because you are purchasing in bulk, all those organized retailers, they are able to offer much better prices. Similarly, goes for the online retail. They are able to offer much better prices than any mom and pop store. So they are going to get threatened, and that is going to come no matter what. If I am a consumer, if I am an educated online buyer, I would like to go to online and purchase the things from there rather than paying extra money to the online or mom and pop store. That is going to happen. This is happening across the globe, and this is going to happen in India as well.
We're going to have to wrap it up. I mean, until we have to wrap it up because there's another session that's going to move in here. Let me just announce that to a couple of housekeeping things. At 12 noon, the Smart Cities panel, How to Build India's 100 Smart Cities, is going to take place right here just a couple of minutes from now. And on the innovation stage, the Technology Solution in Medical Electronics is going to take place at 12. And then we're going to be back on center stage at 2 o'clock. So we'll see you at 2 o'clock. Let's give these gentlemen a warm round of applause. Thank you for a good discussion. Thank you, gentlemen.